Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. We exist to add value to leaders who multiply value to others. My name is Mark Cole, and today we're continuing a two-part series where John Maxwell is teaching us about how we can be leaders who overcome instead of being overcome. Now, last week, episode 1, I hope you got it. In fact, if you did and you want to listen to it, John talked about the internal factors that stop us from being an overcomer. He talked about regret. He talked about resentment. Please go back and listen to that because I promise you it will help you. Today, he's going to share with us on 2 external factors that stop leaders from being an overcomer. I'm excited about this. It was an incredible first episode. Today will be no different. After John is done, my friend Traci Morrow joins me and we talk about a few standout statements and we'll give you some practical ways to apply this to your life in leadership. So grab a pen, grab a paper, because here we go with John Maxwell Part 2.
Now, I've gotten through the first 2 R's so that I could get to the third R, which is resistance. If you've ever been a leader, you understand resistance. Isn't that true? The leader is always the one who takes the flak. So anybody in a leadership position understands very quickly what I call resistance. When you talk about momentum, once an organization has momentum, anyone can get out in front and enjoy the thrust that momentum gives an organization. But what happens when the organization is going the wrong way? So you have to stop that negative momentum. Then you have to build momentum and turn it around and get it going. Now we're talking about a whole different deal, okay? So how do you handle resistance? This will be the practical part of this lesson. Number 1, expect resistance. Let's all start there. Let's all understand we're going to have problems, we're going to have resistance. In fact, motion causes friction. Now, in resistance, how you reduce resistance is by coming up with answers that people have not figured out. Leaders have to see farther than people. They have to see more than people. Okay, now, so let me give you this acrostic because I want to tell you this. You're going to use this the rest of your life. I promise you. This is one of those things, this is going to be worth your whole day right here. The letter P, let's start there, stands for predetermine your course of action. What you do is you have to sit down and basically say, where do I want to end up? So out there somewhere, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you say, this is what I want my life to look like there. Okay, predetermine your course of action. The letter L stands for lay out your goals. After you predetermine where you want to go, you begin to lay out your goals. And by the way, your goals are stepping stones to get to that predetermined course of action, what you want to accomplish. The letter A stands for adjust your priorities. The moment that you begin to lay out your goals, you're going to find out that there's a lot of things you're spending money on, time on, effort on that you need to get rid of for you to be able to accomplish the objective that you have. So you adjust your priorities. The letter N stands for notify key personnel. Now you begin to bring the key players around you. You begin to share with them their dream, and you begin to let them add value to that dream. You even they begin to tweak the dream so that it becomes, they begin to have ownership of it. The letter A in the word ahead stands for allow time for acceptance. Any new thought needs time for people to have incubation and be able to accept what you're giving them. So you allow time for acceptance. The letter H stands for head into action. Now, here's where the resistance comes in. Remember, motion causes friction. The moment you head into action, the letter E kicks in. Expect problems. As long as the train's not moving, you don't have a problem. But once the train begins to pull out of the depot, there's all kind of people. So there are people sitting around the depot who say, well, I want it on the train. There are people who say, well, I want off the train. The other people say, well, I want to go this way, and you're going that way. Okay, so expect problems. So now, in the expecting problems, don't feel bad about it. That's part of life. In fact, in the emotional soul of a leader, one of the reasons leaders are successful is they have the ability to handle emotionally a myriad of problems. If you don't want to have problems, don't ever want to be a leader. If you don't want to have problems, let somebody else be a leader and let them handle all of your problems for you. You just be a follower and every morning get up and do hut 2, 3, 4. Where's the line? If you're going to be a leader, I promise you'll increase the number of problems that you're going to have. So expect problems, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. It's like the kid who flunked out of school and he sent a telegram home to his mom. Flunked all my courses, been kicked out of college. Prepare prop. Which he got a telegram the next day from his mother. Pop prepared. Prepare yourself. Expect prop. The letter A, always point to your successes. Always point to your successes. And the letter D, daily review your progress. Now I want to tell you something. I have just given you an acrostic on planning that if you'll just make it a part of your life, laminate it. That's what you need to do. You laminate this. If you make this a part of your life, this will help you through the process of helping people through resistance and all those things. But just expect resistance because you're going to have it. Now, the second thing in handling resistance is remember the 20-50-30 rule. And the 20-30-50 rule says that 20% of the people are what I call change friendly. When you say let's change, they say let's change. 50% of the people sit on the fence. And 30% of the people are what I call resistors. Now, the next paragraph under these statistics is very key. Giving resistors your attention often just reinforces problem behavior. Try to woo the fence sitters and attend to the 20% who drive the change. Let squeaky wheels squeak. Save your grease for the quieter wheels who are carrying the load. Don't try to get everybody on the boat. Don't try to get everybody on the train. In fact, stop for a moment. You don't want everybody on the boat. Aren't there some people, once they get in your organization, say, oh, dear Lord, what did I do? Let's move the train and let's not tell them. Okay. In handling resistance, number 3, explain the rationale for change. What happens in leading people is when they resist you, remember this, it's in your paragraph, resistance often is rooted in a lack of understanding. Many times people withhold support simply because they haven't figured out the situation. And education and communication is the first step of helping everybody get with the program. Number 4, provide a clear target. Resistance to change climbs fast when people can't figure out where they're headed. The more vague the destination, the fewer the volunteers that you'll find eager to go there. Number 5, take care of the me issues. M-E, the me issues. And here's what I'm saying. The first question a person asks regarding change is, how will this affect me? So if you're going to overcome other issues, you got to handle regret in your life, you got to handle resentment, you got to handle resistance of others, and then you got to handle rejection. So, how do you respond to rejection? Number 1, understand the dynamics of rejection. And the dynamics basically are this simple. You should feel bad when you're rejected. You know, I hear these people say, well, don't let it worry you when you're rejected. Can I tell you something? That's not natural. There's not a person in this room that likes to be rejected. If you like to be rejected, you have other issues we need to deal with. And I've got a therapist for you. You know what I'm saying? Because, it doesn't bother me. I don't care what people think. You are a liar. You're not in touch with who you are. You haven't had a realistic day with your feelings. So the dynamics of rejection is a couple of things going on. One is you will get rejected in life. And number 2 is you will not feel good. If you feel good, then we've got to talk about other issues. Don't worry about that. Number 2, share your feelings with someone. What I have found is that what's necessary when rejected is you have to have a place to vent. The third area in handling rejection is to look at the person who rejected you. And the reason I say that is I learned a long time ago that hurting people hurt people. So when somebody rejects me or somebody is unkind to me, My first question is not why. My first question is I want to look at them and see if they're hurting people. And if they're hurting people, I realize that many times I just happened to be the person who was around them when their hurt showed up, and so therefore I got the grenade. Okay? Number 4, look at yourself. And the reason you want to look at yourself is, well, I found the enemy and it's me. We have to look and say, am I doing things that cause people to reject me? Number 5, do what is right. Just do what is right. Successful people do what unsuccessful people won't do. The paradoxical commandments of leadership. It says people are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you're successful, you'll win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable, but be honest and frank anyway. The biggest men with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favor underdogs, but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help, but may attack you if you help them. Help them anyway. Give the world the best that you have, and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. But I just want you to know this. The only people that ever finish the race are the people that keep on keeping on. The only people that ever hear the well done, thou good and faithful servant, are the ones who decide to run one more mile. The world is handed to people, not because of their brilliance, not because of their expertise, but because of their persistence and tenacity and their ability and their willingness to discipline themselves, focus on tomorrow, and take one more step today. That's what I wish for you.
Are you ready to elevate your leadership to new heights? Join the movement towards High Road Leadership with John C. Maxwell's latest book. In High Road Leadership, John explores the power of valuing all people, doing the right things for the right reasons, and placing others above personal agendas. Learn how to inspire positive change and bring people together in a world that divides. Order now and receive exclusive bonuses, including a keynote on High Road Leadership by John Maxwell himself and a sneak peek into 3 impactful chapters. Take the first step towards becoming a High Road leader. Visit highroadleadershipbook.com to order your copy today.
Hey, welcome back. I'm going to tell you, Traci, I'm ready to charge the hill. I'm ready to run through a troop. I'm ready to jump over a wall. I'm ready to do something. John kind of finished the lesson today, making me a believer that I'm an overcomer. And I'm so excited to go in and talk about this. I'm reminded of Nelson Mandela's quote that says, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail." And some of you, I know, listen to this podcast. Chances are thousands and thousands of you listening. Chances are some of you are feeling like a failure today. Some of you have perhaps overcome the 2 things that we talked about in episode 1 of regret and resentment. But these external factors, these things you can't control, is really wearing you down. And so that's what Traci and I are going to help you with today. I'm very excited about it. Let's get ready to jump through a troop, run over a wall. And I know I said that wrong, but I said it on purpose because I'm just ready to do something today.
You are fired up. I love this side of you. I love that so much. And I love how John will always talk about how the value of setting expectations on the front end is so important. So if we are going to expect resistance, then we are not going to be surprised when it shows up. And I thought that was something that is very important, because I think when it does show up and we're surprised by it, it feels so much stronger And maybe we might take it in as a failure on our part if we didn't see it coming. But if we're expecting it and it shows up, it's kind of like, there it is. I was expecting you. You're a part of the journey. You're not a surprise to the journey. And I think a lot of people, a lot of leaders I know I certainly did as a young leader. This was a very soothing thing to learn from John because it made failure a part of the journey, not in contrast to the journey. So I have a couple questions for you. As he went through his plan ahead acrostic, he said that now when he got to head into action, he kind of highlighted that was the first part where action came in. But I saw kind of a sneaky first place where there was action. And that was when you notify your key personnel, because that really is where it comes out of your head and to other people and where your first resistance can show up. So that's really where motion goes away from you to other people. And so I was curious, Mark, how you prepare for those first two levels of resistance. How do you prepare for the first resistance with notifying key personnel? And then the second level is when it moves beyond key personnel and they're all on board, how do you mentally, emotionally, spiritually prepare for the resistance as it heads into action and you start having that traction, which motion causes friction and you start to feel that friction?
Well, it's so interesting. Just today, I was meeting with several of our team, our entire staff. We have these state of the culture meetings, and I had one today. And we started a journey of a turnaround on some particular things that we're working on, and we knew it was going to be a long journey. And so, in fact, our CFO forecasted that it was going to take us 18 months to do this particular turnaround. And we're 12 months in. Today was the landmark of when we really started making difficult decisions that was creating traction. And we're 12 months in. And I told them something that I'll tell you as podcast listeners, and then I'm going to come back and talk about this notify key personnel and start to head into action. Because John said it in the lesson today. He alluded to it last week in episode 1 when he said leaders' responsibility is to see more and before. In other words, when we're trying something audacious, we're in the middle of an 18-month process right now. When you're starting into something, it's extremely important that periodically along the way, you remind people what you said at the beginning as it relates to resistance so that they don't wake up one day and go, what's wrong with us? They don't lose heart. They don't lose persistence to keep pushing. Today was one of those days. I just needed to remind everybody, hey, we are making extremely great progress. But don't forget, we started an 18-month journey 12 months ago. That's true as it relates to resistance, and this is even talking about resistance with our team. But it's true when you walk into something big, when you walk into something that is going to be a change, when you introduce something for the first time, you are going to have resistance. It's not because you're a bad leader. It's not because it's a bad plan. It's not because your people are deadbeats and don't want to do anything hard. It's because resistance happens. As leaders, not only do we have to expect it, we have to level set resistance with our team. That's why the point that you're asking about, Traci, is so important. You've got to notify key leaders. You know what I did before my meeting today? I sat down with one of our key leaders and I said, okay, this is the message I'm delivering today. What is going to sound new, unusual, or challenging to the teams that you've been meeting on a weekly basis? I'm just getting back from an international trip. I've been out of the office for a while. I needed my key teammates to give insight to me on how to even communicate the reminder that resistance was expected. That's the value of meeting with your key leaders first. Before you even head into action, as I did today with a meeting, it's important to get the key leaders to give you input. Why? Because you let them know it's okay. 2, you get a perspective that's bigger than the one you're currently carrying. 3, you get ambassadors after the meeting. Because I brought that leader in on the front end, now that leader and the leadership team will drive the behaviors on the back end.
Okay, so I'm going to follow this storyline a little bit to bring it into my next question. And hopefully our listeners are kind of not just listening to your storyline, but comparing it, hopefully, and applying it to what they're dealing with in their leadership journey as well, because that's what we do on this podcast, right? So one of the things that you said was that it's not necessarily because it's a bad plan. So that's because you're 12 months into an 18-month plan. But let's go back a little bit to the beginning of the 18-month plan when you first laid this out to your team. Okay, by now you've found and you've tweaked and you've worked the plan and you found that it's not a bad plan. It's a good plan. You're on track. You've got some great traction. But let's take it back a little bit. So moving forward into when John talks about 20% of the people are change friendly, 50% of the people sit on the fence, and the 30% of the people are resistors. So I would say that I am change friendly, but I have also been known and could be considered sometimes to be a resistor a little bit, depending on the project or the event, because I'm not just going to be change friendly for the sake of change. I want it to be good change. I want it to be a good plan. I'm not just going to go along with any plan as a member of the team. I want it to be the best plan for the team. So can you talk about when you're first bringing this to your team? Some leaders are like, this is the plan. This is the way it is. I don't want to hear back from the team. We're trying to move this forward. And can you talk about the differences between hearing from a squeaky wheel versus a discerner, someone who has the discerning genius from, let's talk about Pat Lencioni's book, The 6 Types of Working Genius, a discerner who isn't necessarily a squeaky wheel, but is discerning maybe to point out some gaps. Some leaders might not hear the difference between a squeaky wheel and who actually is a discerner on their leadership team. Does that make sense, that question?
It does.
Okay.
It does. And I think a leader has to go and check themselves, because too often when I'm presenting a new idea, I'm presenting it as a convincer rather than a listener.
Right.
Great leaders don't present new ideas and convince people in the first time they hear about it. They give their idea and listen for what they might be missing.
Okay.
So you, the discerner, let's call you a discerner, hopefully, and not a resistor, because you don't want to be in
Right.
that 30% of getting left behind. Let's say you're intuitive and you're really not trying to be a resistor, but you're trying to use your intuitiveness to make sure that things are not being missed. A great leader is going to take your intuition and they're going to catch the things that you are bringing up in a listening tour when they first bring it up. Mm-hmm. Here's where you really can determine a resistor to an intuitive individual. It's when you feel heard. Let's use you, Traci. You feel heard. You feel like you were absolutely heard. You feel like you were responded to, and the leader still feels like it's something she or he wants to do. At that point, when they have done you the justice of listening, they have done you the justice of responding, and they still feel like it's the direction, you need to check yourself, because you may be in a resistor and not intuitive.
Yeah, that's
because
good.
An intuitive person just wants to make sure their intuition is heard, monitored, and valued. And by the way, your intuition might be right and the leader still went the wrong way. That's okay. Leaders make mistakes. I have found too many intuitive people that hide behind intuition when really they're just a resistor. They don't want to go that way anyway. And
Right.
I've met too many leaders that improperly label intuition as resistance and therefore miss key indicators from key relationship people on the team.
I think that is so important for both the leader, but also for the discerning team member, because they need to be able to communicate clearly with one another, and for the leader to be mature enough to hear from the discerner, and then the discerner to be okay with still going on board with the plan. even if it goes against what maybe they brought to the table. And the leader says, you know what, I've heard what you have to say, and we're going to go ahead with it anyway.
I was on a call just a little week ago. Every week I do a call for our Maxwell Leadership certified team members. They call with their leadership questions. They call with their client proposal questions. They call with personal growth questions. And me and 5 other people that John has selected does these daily calls for our certified team members. And so anyway, I was on a call with Jose, and Jose was telling me, he said, Mark, I have this group of people that are very passionate about the future, and then I have these people that I'm counseling on what went wrong in the past. He said, how do I bring those people and get them all on the same page? I said, you don't. You keep the people that still want to be counseled in the counseling session. And I'm not saying you don't empathize with them, you don't reach out to them, and I'm not saying you immediately leave them behind. But I'm telling you that if you're spending time with 2 groups of people, the people that want to stay in the past are going to hinder the people that want to go forward with you in the future. And furthermore, leaders, what I told Jose, I said, Jose, you need to figure out if you're a counselor or you're a visionary. And I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. We need both. But if you're a visionary and you spend all your time with the counseling, you are going to lose your visionary perspective.
Yeah.
Jose called me, thanked me, went and implemented that and created 2 separate groups that really helped his leadership appetite, but it really helped the people get in groups where they could serve each other best. And I share that because it's really important. Now, as I'm sharing that, Traci, I'm realizing that last week, I told people how to find out more information about joining that tribe where you can get a daily call. You can be a part of betting on yourself and building something. And we showed a video to our YouTubers. We played a little small clip for those on audio. And I'd like to do that again this week for those of you that missed it. We had an incredible response last week, and I want to give you an opportunity. Check this out, and we'll come back and continue the conversation afterwards.
Hey, podcast listeners. Many of you listening right now would probably love the autonomy that comes with owning your own business or becoming a coach that helps other businesses succeed. Well, we have a phenomenal strategy where you are 100% in control of your own business, earning income on your own terms, and have access to the people, tools, and resources you need to build a thriving leadership development business. When you become a Maxwell Leadership Certified team member, you join a global community of entrepreneurs led by our expert team of mentors and faculty, including John C. Maxwell. You'll also get one of the top leadership certifications in the world next to your name, giving you the boost you need to get started. Visit us online at maxwellleadership.com/join the team to find out more.
Hey, well, welcome back, Traci. You constantly add value to people. Thanks for letting me share that story about Jose, and thanks for all of you that just caught that link and you're going to go check out that website and be a part of it. Traci, here's my whole point in all of that. You're going to get resistance. You need to get in communities that help you get beyond resistance as you live your best life.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's move on to rejection. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's going to happen. So can you talk about a time? Let's get real here. Let's get real and honest because you're so good at that with our audience. But talk about a time when you've navigated rejection and what you've learned through venting, maybe with John or people close with you, close in your inner circle, so that you're able to process it properly so that it doesn't move into what we talked about last week. And that is where you have bitterness and resentment so that you can, in a healthy way, vent your rejection towards healing with John, maybe in a way that he's processed with you so that you don't become a resentful leader.
Well, what's so interesting is I love when John tells the story about rejection. He talks about his first, I think it was his first church, maybe it was his second church. He had 50 people that was voting on him to be the pastor. 48 said yes, 1 said no, and 1 abstained. So again, 48 said yes, 1 said, heck no, we don't want this guy. And another person said, I'm not sure, which really means no way. I just am too embarrassed to say it, right?
Right.
John said for 4 weeks, I think it was 4 weeks, 3, 4, 5 weeks, every time he would get on stage to speak, all he could think about was watching people's body language and their facial expression to find out who the no and the abstaining vote was. It really captured him that he didn't get 100%, and all he could think about is 2 people is out there listening to me today, and one of them didn't have the guts to vote, and one of them voted against me.
So
He said it
gets
so captured me that my communication was terrible. I have found for my leadership, because I'm a positive person, and I have a little bit of woo, and in team meetings, I can get a lot of momentum with my vulnerability and my charisma. I can move a team. I have found that for me, I have to build in resistance. In other words, I surround myself with contrarians. The first 8 years of my CEO leadership role, I had intentionally a CFO that would serve as a contrarian to me. We're great friends. If something happened to me, he would take care of Stephanie. He's just a great friend. But in a business setting, I paid him to disagree with me publicly. Because here's why. I can woo a room with my influential and my inspiration. And I needed somebody to slow me down to make sure that resistance would keep me honest in really believing the vision and the direction of the organization. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs to do that. That's just what I needed. I needed people around me to tell me why something might not work. It frustrated me. I wanted to pull out my hair, then I wanted to pull out his hair, and then I wanted to look for other people to pull their hair out. It was not fun. It slowed me down, but it kept me in an environment that was most effective for me and my temperament. I like resistance. I like contrarian because it makes me better. Now it may be time to tell you that I won in debate class in high school. I was good at debating. So I love that conversation that sharpens you because it makes your thinking better. If that's not you, and resistance, rejection, that whole thing, you take resistance as rejection, then now we've really got to talk about you and how you lead. I didn't take resistance as rejection. I took it as a friend to me. But when you start feeling rejection, like we were talking about with John, and it begins to capture your thinking, and it begins to be more than someone that might disagree with you, a contrarian, as I said, and now it becomes someone that gets to determine your value in how you see yourself, you've really got to get some help with that.
I love that. I love when you speak to the reality of what we are dealing with, whether that's something that you personally deal with or not. I so appreciate that.
Tracy, can I say one more thing right here?
Yeah,
Before
please.
you go to that last question. For me, I have found that most rejection is because you're not self-secure in the area you feel rejected. I can remember, I'll get really personal with you. For those of you that watch YouTube, I used to be redhead. Now I think I'm gray-headed. It's coming in too fast, Tracy. And I need some hair consulting right here because it's getting gray quick. But I can remember as a kid when my hair started going from blonde and straight to red and curly at about 11, 12, 13 years of age, when your whole body is freaking out. And I can remember for the first 4 or 5 years, people saying, I'd rather be dead than red on the head. Nobody else in my family was redheaded. And they would say, you're not even part of the family. You were adopted. My older brother, he's mean. He's very mean. I'm just kidding. He was mean. I can remember for about 4 years, Tracy, that destroying me because I had not settled insecure of myself. And I've watched too many people deal with insecurities within themselves and allow others to do what other people just do, and that's carelessly walk through life and say careless things. And that speak rejection, and it's really not rejection at all. It is a lack of self-confidence in an area, and you interpret it as rejection. So number one, people that reject you for where you really are and want to go, you probably shouldn't give them too much credibility in your voice, in your life rather. Secondly, make sure that rejection really is not an indicator that you need to get some self-security in a particular area.
That right there is for every one of us, no matter our age or stage of life. That could be your height. That could be your weight. That could be the color of your eyes, the color of your hair. That could be something that happened to you or something that you continually carry with you that is that running tape in the back of your head that just plays. And every time someone points it out to you, it's confirmation to you that that is right. And we need to get that settled, that because every time someone says it outside of our head, it confirms what we say to ourselves inside of our head. And what we say to ourselves matters, and we need to deal with that. And so I appreciate you. Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
great. Okay. So part of just talking about, being rejected and from a business perspective, part of being a leader is letting people go, and also people, just having to release them from the team for good reasons or for not so great reasons, but also people flying from the team, going to the next thing, people who you really wanted to stay on the team, who you saw as a valued member of the team. People don't always leave for bad reasons. Sometimes people leave because they see something else in their future and you're heartsick because they go. And so how do you walk through those processes in your mind so that you don't see, that you can operate in those situations, that you don't view them as a rejection, or that you don't set it up so that it's a rejection of the person who you're having to release, even if it's a sticky or uncomfortable situation?
Well, I won't make a transition or even agree to a transition. You have people come and say, hey, I want to soar to the next spot, or hey, I want to leave this nest because I'm not sure what's next, but I need some space to figure out what's next. I need your blessing. I want your blessing. In other words, what they're saying is, I want your approval. I want you to endorse this idea. And whether I'm transitioning people or people are transitioning themselves for good reason or unexplainable reason, I never settle and, quote, give my blessing or make a decision to transition somebody until I can settle within myself that no matter what the other individual says or thinks, this is for their best. I can remember years and years and years ago that I made a decision to transition somebody because I felt like it was best for the organization. And not only did I not handle that one correctly, I've often wished that I would have handled that differently. I think the person should have been transitioned. I think all of that was good, but I didn't settle. And what I didn't settle that it was best for them. I settled that it was best for the organization. And I don't run organizations. I run people, if you'll allow me to use this terminology, I run people that make up an organization. And too often, and this is not just for people leaders, I'm a people person. But leaders that are not even people, when you begin to dehumanize your organization to make best decisions for the organization, you inadvertently devalue people. And that's a fundamental flaw of a leader. You've got to value people first, and then the organization will take care of itself. And so the first thing that I'll tell you, there's been many transitions that I have both accepted because they were leaving anyway, or transitions that I have made because it was right for the person that people don't agree with. It's not about agreement. It's about a leadership settledness that says, I am making this decision and it is best for the individual, and one day it'll make a lot more sense. And I think that ability to do that allows oftentimes, not every time, please don't confuse it. Oftentimes, it allows the relational aspect to rework itself out down the road. And I have become great friends with people that I have transitioned when in the moment they did not agree with me and did not like it. And yet eventually it made sense. And as leaders, I think we have to do that because the rejection mindset, I never want to communicate rejection, although most of the time when a transition happens, it communicates rejection to somebody. But when I settle within myself that it is best for the person, I don't listen to the lie of rejection because it's not rejection. It's actually acceleration to the life you are intended to live. It comes back, Traci, I believe this, and we'll close with this. It absolutely, in my mind, comes back to a mindset thing. You have got to get clear and settled in your mindset. And the whole thing we're talking about, overcoming instead of being overcome. This whole concept really starts with your thinking. It starts with your mental perspective. That's why we had great response last week, and I want to make it available again this week. It's the Mindset Mastery Playbook. This is free. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is free, and it's something we've developed, a Mindset Mastery Playbook. It's a 4-step process to turn overwhelm, doubt, and stress into growth and momentum. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll tell you how to get it. It's yours free. We want you to have it. I think it goes along well with what we've been talking about for the last 2 episodes. Take advantage of that. Hey, Salem, listen to High Road Leadership Part 4. By the way, if you didn't hear the 4-part series that John and I did on High Road Leadership, you need to go back and check those 4 podcasts out. Incredible. Salem was listening to Part 4 and said, that is big. Emotional capacity makes a difference in leadership in dark times, and that defines a leader's hour to rise at that moment. Salem, you said thank you for growing us. I say thank you for growing together. Proud to be on the team with you. Hey, go bring powerful, positive change to the world around you because everyone deserves to be led well.